That'll be 5 years.
Okay, so 5 years, I think. It's been a few years. They decided, Engineering by Design decided that they needed to keep up on things, so they did what's called the media rich, which is what we showed you. Everything we've showed you was the media rich online version. By December 1, that will, if you're not a login school, you will be shut down. You won't have access to it. I'm sorry. So that's why we gave you the binder. So if you and your partner were not in the same school district and you didn't have access and you used the book and they used the online, you might want to take a few minutes to rectify that and figure out what to teach us about. And what was the other thing I was going to tell you about? Oh, Cleo, my mind just went.
Must not have been important.
It was. There's two things.
Well, I was going to say, one thing I can say is that we did get the simultaneous blended courses policy approved last week. State Department of Ed, as well as the head auditor, as well as Board of Regents, as well as NCAA.
So everybody's trying to say.
I mean, 300 and some regulations I had to work through. Took 4.5 years to pull it off, but we got it. So what that's going to mean is that, and I have the confirmation email from Jay Scott. When I do my annual CTE update tomorrow with school districts, I know Hoisington's coming on Wednesday at Great Bend, but tomorrow's at Hutch. I will give you the confirmation email. Your district will want, if you're going to apply for the integrated, the engineering applied mathematics pathway, you're going to want to have that confirmation email in your file so that if you teach geometry and technological design, you can draw the funding for the technological design, even though you're teaching a core class with it.
So who's coming tomorrow?
I think Brian Kixler is coming out of your district.
Okay, so this is all for CTE.
Yeah, it's a CTE annual update.
Okay,
It'll either be a curriculum director or a CTE teacher or someone like that that's probably coming tomorrow.
Are you talking to superintendent?
I know I've got 56 coming tomorrow.
Are you talking to superintendent?
I talked to superintendents on Monday and Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And I talked to curriculum directors on Thursday.
So they're the ones that decide whether we're going to buy into this. And that'll be before December 1st.
And how much does this cost the online media training? Whatever you're talking about?
That's a you question.
I'm sorry, what now?
How much does this online media version cost?
You have the media version.
I mean, is it like in perpetuity?
Huh?
So it's not a yearly fee or?
It is a yearly fee.
It's an annual thing.
Your districts are supposed to.
$1,450 a year. But that gives the district 2 training slots that's included in that.
That would be in that. Other slots.
And then they buy extra slots if they need more.
We know this is somewhat confusing, and your job is to teach everybody and not to worry so much about all the other side of it, but we're hoping we're giving you that other side so that you know what to say to your curriculum directors and administrators, that this is a good program, you do buy into it, and this is what you would like out of it. Once again, I've tried to make it very clear. If your district paid for you and you only to come, there's a problem with that if you're trying to implement it across the district. We have no problem with you going back and trying to get other teachers, a science teacher, a technology teacher, a math teacher, to help you with this. Problem is what you guys experience during your 5-day training, actually getting to do the models, getting to actually experience it. It's one thing to tell somebody about it, but it's a totally different thing once you've seen it and experienced it. I think, Twyla, you could vouch for that, doing the hydraulics there. Didn't even think that your group was going to be able to do something, but you were the most successful in the whole group here getting that done. To go back and tell somebody, oh, we use syringes to do hydraulics and mnemonics, be like, okay, what are we doing? So it's in class seat time that we need to make this a go. Cleveland's working really hard to make it financially possible for your school districts. And I think that's phenomenal because the smaller school districts are struggling. But understand your training isn't as much as one textbook. So, anyway, when you come up, which I guess I need to get that going, you're
I was
welcome.
gonna say, another thing is, just so you guys know this, the ones who, there's 2 sign-up times a year. The ones who did not sign up for August 15th deadline, the next deadline is December 1 with a drop dead of December 15th. They like to have it by December 1, but the drop dead is December 15th. Those that signed up in August, you're on for the whole year. But those of you that might want to add a teacher, especially now that I got geometry and technological design approved for simultaneous blending. And I'm telling you this because here's the way this works. This year goes through June 30th, but they leave the access to the portal open for the summer for those teachers that are enrolled second semester. Then the other one doesn't start until August 15th. If you're going to teach that blended geometry next fall, you'll have access all summer. Plus, we're doing the training in June. And, you know, and so that might be something that they want to just look at, is add another slot so that they can take that training. And needless to say, you'll get way more back in the fall than what's going to cost you that week of training in the summer. You do the math on the CT funding, but that's not why I'm doing this. The whole thing was trying to bring those real-life applications together with content. But anyway, so like in the case of, I'm just going to use South Haven for an example. In the case of South Haven, their building is enrolled, but their geometry teacher is not on the list. So what John is going to want to do, or Lynn is going to want to fill out the add-on sheet and add a teacher. Well, they don't have to pay the extra. They don't have a full building. They'll just pay for that one teacher to be added for our geometry. Which I know you have both elementary and secondary coming, so we'll just, I think you had,
Cassie in the elementary and Sarah.
right, so, and you paid for an elementary slot. I mean, you have an elementary slot included in your building, so we'll just bill you for it, for an elementary slot. Because whatever's the more expensive goes in the previous. So we'll look at where you are with that, so.
When we go back next year,
Huh?
when we go back next year, when you get our enrollment and everything, this class, Foundations of Technology, is supposed to be a place of physical science or geometry.
The Foundations of Tech, you could use pieces of it with physical science. This is the class that you can use pieces in different places. It's not a total replacement of something else. Technological design, you can align totally with geometry, and it's the second class. This one has some algebra connections, some physical science connections. It's the one class in the pathway that you'd either add or you'll have computer apps, one or the other, for your intro. But the other two will go right in with the Algebra 2 and the Geometry. And then there's a class that's called Project Management and Resource Scheduling that is really good for senior projects and that kind of thing. And you put the second half of the engineering design in that. Because it's all time and planning process is what those standards are working on. Okay, but I'll go over that really good tomorrow with whoever's coming for the curriculum director stuff. So I think Lynn's planning on coming up from South Haven, if I remember right. But anyway, I just want to make sure you guys kind of feel really comfortable with understanding how this is going to work. And then I'm going to make sure I have all your emails and stuff. So once I get everything totally nailed down, each of the activities with the next generation science standards for this class, I worried more about the second one, knowing what I had to do with all these agencies to pull it off. I will get you that. Because I think that'll help me a lot if I can tell you, hey, the crane strength, it works on these algebra standards, it works on these physical science standards, NGSS standards.
We're working on that.
Right.
It's coming. For today, all we're doing is presentations, doing some summative type activities or processes today. We have, if you have PowerPoint, hook up here. You do not need the Blackboard unless you have wonderful music to give to us or something. But we will tell you, we have the dongles up here if you have a Mac. And we need to turn on these wonderful mics. And when we turn on these wonderful mics, everything will be recorded today. Maybe. And we're wanting you to be able to use the mics because sound quality, you can tell that it's a whole lot better if you have it up here than if you have it down here. But that's why they're all around the room. Okay. What else? We are going to go in order. We have Matt and Todd, then Drew and Sarah, then AJ, Josh, and Brian, then Rob and Eric, followed by Tammy and London, then David and Adriana, Brenda. This is Brenda and Young. Yeah, and Twyla, you'll finish us out. I want to go in that order.
So we keep it in sequence, so.
How's the lunch break?
We will have a lunch break
I know,
in here.
where is it on the, do we go before lunch or at?
I'm assuming that you will be after lunch by far.
Okay, that's what.
Okay. We are going to take this day casual. We are going to remember breaks. We did not remember breaks in the last group. So bear with us, but we'll try to do a couple groups, do a break, couple groups. Some of these go really fast.
We're going to try to record some of these because that helps us also.
We're going to record all of them. Some of these go really fast. There's not a whole lot in there. Keeping in mind, we want you to tell us what is in the unit. If you found a link that doesn't work, please let us know. If there are things that you would change or confusion problems. We found a few of these lessons that there's like, this is really kind of confusing. So we need to know all those kinds of pieces of information. Is there anybody that needs just a few more minutes?
Nationals to improve those things that we
Yes.
find some little thing here or there. So.
Anybody that needs a few more minutes to get their stuff together? Okay, if not, we're gonna start with Matt and Todd, and Drew and Sarah, you're gonna get things ready. You're on bed.
So I'm hoping between tomorrow and Thursday with personal directors and Monday when I see James and review supervisor, Remington feels very comfortable with what.
I hope so.
I've tried it.
And anybody that needs a computer, let me know. I have both platforms.
There it is. Holy smokes. Enormous.
Well,
You know how to mirror that? You know how to mirror that?
Yes, we should have internet.
No, to mirror, so I can see it on this screen.
Oh, sorry. What do we do with that?
It's enormous on there. Settings.
You go to settings,
Oh.
but the other group went to, there's a mirror. Yeah, mirror, check mirror displays. And there you go. There you go.
Okay.
still huge. But that might work best, actually. This is the way it zooms out, or zoomed in. Yeah, see that. That would work better. Is that pulled up?
It's a Monday, so, you know, hang with us for technological glitches. There you go.
There it is. That's way better.
You're just like me. Look at this.
This is. Hey.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this has to be expensive.
I saw that earlier. It got left out. My son on Friday was there and I was out on the bench when I come in this morning. So. All right. You ready? You starting?
Okay, sure. Well, our lesson, Unit 2, Lesson 5, you can all find it on the EbD site. The idea is basically to introduce students to sketching and then a couple different types of drawings. It doesn't really involve CAD, but it's kind of an intro to CAD, how they would draw in their design notebooks, how they would start to sketch and draw some of the things that they're going to do. So conceptual, physical, and mathematical representation of objects, and expect students to generate multiple models of objects. Basically, we're going to showcase some different objects, something like this, Lego configuring or something like that. They learn how to draw it. The power is pretty simple, and I know that we can all read, but Todd does this with his classes, so we thought we'd go through it fairly quickly and talk about it a little bit so you can see what you'd be going through. Big idea, engineering design. They're going to learn essentially how to do this, because most kids when they walk into our classrooms wouldn't be able to draw that, at least not my classroom. Sketching, say it takes practice, but they kind of got some key points to look at. Long, light, flowing lines. This is kind of an introductory drawing or a very first drawing rather than your final. You want to talk about technical drawing?
Yeah, there's several different symbols when you do drawings that you use in drafting. We're not going to get into a bunch of them today, but you know, if you're doing an architectural drawing or something, they have symbols for doors and light fixtures and different things, sinks, toiletry. But for the general thing, what they're wanting you to do, basically, if you understand the measurement part of it, how to put in extension lines and dimension lines, so that you can actually dimension something when they make a sketch of it or when they make a drawing of it. That'll pretty much get you where you're at as far as what the lesson covers.
So it says that we can do CAD or paper and pencil. Again, this one mostly focuses on paper pencil, and they show two different types, orthographic and isometric drawings.
Okay, right. On your ortho drawing, you have certain things. Usually you have three views. You have a front, top, and right side view. To give you an idea, I'm going to use a speaker as an example. I'm putting that in power. If you would look at this speaker, it looks like what? Looking straight at it, it looks just like a square, right? Or a rectangle, right? Rectangle. It looks like a rectangle. So.
Well, anything over this.
That's right. Without another view of it, you can't tell what it actually looks like. So if I turn it up this way, you just ignore the chords. What's it look like now? Okay. Right. Right. If you look straight at it, all you're really going to see is this and probably this right here. So it's actually going to look like almost like a pyramid type of deal,
Yeah.
right? But if you look at it this way, you actually can see everything that's about it. You wouldn't have known that it had this step in it, would you? When you look at it, you wouldn't know that it appears here, or how far. So that's what you're looking at, and then they call that a multi-view drawing or a multi-view projection on there. And then if you have the, I guess we can move on to the next one. Well, we got to go a little ways. So let me keep talking. This is an example that I have. They have the projection and the actual top and side views. These are some examples that I brought for you that you can look at. You can kind of pass these around. This is a finished drawing of the front, top, and right side of a little stool that we built. And they have projection lines that actually go on here that you have to project. And this one still, this student hasn't erased all of his lines yet. So you can still see some of the projection lines. That's how they do that. So basically what you're doing is you are bringing these views straight across. You're actually bringing these straight across, but you put a 45-degree line in here going off the corner, and you'll be able to see that when I pass this around. And that basically makes this make the corner and come down. So once you've got the front view and the top view, it almost draws the right view for you.
And it does a pretty good job with the animations here somewhere.
Yeah, we'll go back on that. Oh. As you can see that, you'll be able to see these lines. This 45-degree line that goes up across here, you can actually see that on this paper. It's not completed yet. This student here has did a pretty good job of erasing his lines and use construction lines. Like Matt said, you want to sketch, you want to use very light lines when you're sketching so that they are removable, so they're not permanent. By using the light lines that Matt talked about, they can make changes to their drawing, because all of us know that, you know, when we first start out, we're going to make some changes. So by being able to do that to the sketch before you draw the final drawing, then you can erase and change and move stuff around. Makes sense to everybody? So I'll start this around.
When you do this with your kids, this looked like a pretty good tool to me, because this is not something I do every day. But this actually walks them through how to do this, and there's a step. It lists the step here, it shows it on the graph paper, and then it shows what you're going for in your final product. So establish an origin, frame out the workspace, shows construction lines. And then, I mean, this is just PowerPoint animated, so all you're doing is clicking through here and walking the kids through each step. So this would be really easy as far as teaching them how to do this. Add a 45-degree line, add the points of interest, which are basically the corners on your front view.
Does yours show up on one?
Does it show up
look
on
through that, and
What's
when
that?
you pull up the PowerPoint, it looks like there's nothing but a bunch of garble down the bottom.
Yeah, the PowerPoint looks terrible right
Yeah.
there, but it's just because there's 17 animations on one slide.
Exactly.
So here's what
Yeah.
the PowerPoint looks like there. So it looks awful, but if you project that, then you can just click through and it takes you through each step.
I thought there was something wrong with the file. Okay, this needs to be fixed.
And then basically you just darken the finish line. So it walks you through how to do each step there. So this is really user friendly. It's not something that's probably going to take a ton of time for any of us to teach in our classrooms. And then the isometric projection. Still, but kind of the same idea with the slides. It walks you through how to do each step. And you need a different type of graph paper, but it's still going to walk you through how to make your isometric projection, just like it did on the orthographic.
And a lot of times you might want to start with this, because a lot of students see stuff in a 3D kind of before they actually understand. Sometimes it's hard for the students to understand this before they get the idea. But if you have the 3D version up here of the ISO, then you can label that. And right there you can clearly see what would be the front. So the L-shaped part would be the front. The top would be the square, the rectangle at the top. And the other thing would be the other rectangle over here at the side, because all you're going to see is two rectangles, basically with a line in them. And then the right side would be this big rectangle over here, and then the really big rectangle up at the top. That would be your right side view. Does that make sense to everybody? Anybody have any questions on that? All right. So if you would start with this, then you would easily be able to go to the multi-view. And that's going to give you a lot more detail when you do that. And in the drafting world, they use different, they have an alphabet of lines. They have hidden lines and visible lines and so on. And I talked about extension lines and dimension lines. You'll be able to see some of them on here. So I'm going to pass this around. I'll start this around. I'll start one on one end. So, okay.
And that's really the end of the show. As far as tying into other subjects, this would be really easy to tie into math. You can pretty easily do surface area and volume with any shape that you're going to draw there. That would be a pretty easy and quick tie-in. Whether you did that in a shop class or a math class, it wouldn't really matter. You'd still get the same ideas. The science would maybe be a little bit more difficult to tie into, but I think you could do it if you were looking at, like we talked about not a gas chamber, but a gas
tank for a
car, or the volume of a gas tank, and maybe you could talk about how far your car could drive on this much gas. You get 30 miles per gallon, and it's a 15-gallon gas tank. How far can you drive? You could do maybe a little bit of science or math with that. But really, this is an introductory lesson teaching your kids how they're going to draw in their engineering notebooks. There's certainly some times you can make the math, maybe some science, but it's basically preparing them to draw, preparing them to do some of their design.
Right. And the big thing is when you get them started, have them do the sketches. The drafting one, they call them thumbnail sketches or something, just some little sketches the size of your thumbnail, and then have them move up from that and have them draw a little bit bigger sketch, and then you can take them into the multi-view that gives them more detail. So just something to think about. Basically, they need to learn to sketch before they can do anything else.
As far as the resources, there's a whole bunch of YouTube videos and stuff like that. Again, just like on every other lesson that we've looked at. If you needed some extra support, that would be another place that you could go. There's 6 or 7 videos on orthographic. There's a couple things, projections. So that would be a place where if your kids are struggling with it, or if maybe you were struggling with it, I would need to watch some of that before I could teach it. But that would be a place you could go. And then the lesson plan, I mean, it lists out completely what you would do there. Engagement, exploration, explanation. The assessment is basically to have your students draw 3 objects in the classroom. You can do that with Legos, you can do it with blocks, you can do it with pretty much any object you wanted, but they would then draw those objects as their assessment. Can you actually do an isometric projection and an orthographic projection? That would be their assessment. So then if you wanted to talk about surface area, if you wanted to talk about volume, or even like it had a descriptive writing, that would be an English tie-in. So you could have them describe in writing what that object is.
An example would be the speaker that I held up earlier. You can pick that speaker in the classroom and draw the speaker.
That's it.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Did you check a lot of the links? It seemed like there was one they said didn't work.
I checked some of them. I didn't check all of them. There was a link that they said didn't work.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I did the first 2 or 3 last night. And I didn't. They worked for me. So I didn't check them all, but
I'm not sure. I didn't check them all either.
It has down at the bottom, it has Google SketchUp.
Yeah.
The other thing that we were talking about now that you guys have the option of having Autodesk is that Inventor is the dumbed down version that would line up with Google SketchUp. However, Inventor is just a little bit higher up than Google SketchUp. It was immediately pointed out it is no longer Google SketchUp, it is just SketchUp.
Google Draw would work really well for this too. It's not quite as technical. It'd be a little harder to actually do dimensions and things like that. But I went on last night on Google Draw and just made that little L shape that they were orthographically projecting there. And it's really easy. It would be good for your visual heavy kids or those kids that don't want to actually draw they can pretty easily do it on Google Drawing. It's a neat tool that's fairly easy to use. You're limited some with your shapes, but for most of the purposes that we use, it's why you do it.
And even if you guys are scared to do it yourself, letting the kids grasp that technology piece, they will love it. Some of them will just take it and run with it and know where to go with it. And others of them will just like to know that they can get on and do it. And will utilize it anymore. So know that that's out there.
And once they have the idea on paper, never mind. The AutoCAD will almost instantly, it draws it basically for you. And it's amazing. You really use AutoCAD. How many of you here had the luxury of using AutoCAD? So, you can draw things in like a fourth of the time you draw a piece of paper. So.
I see.
Yes, and it's, yeah.
Very good. You guys run that? You need a different one?
Yeah.
You need the iPad one? I didn't bring it in because I was like, I don't have the iPad to use this last time.
Well, ours is 3.2, which is materials, and it's kind of piggyback on your guys a little bit because it's looking at, it's having you draw things and do that kind of stuff. So even though it's a couple chapters down the way, it uses what theirs does in terms of drawing. And you said there was a good introductory level, which wouldn't be because there's a lot of the same stuff in ours. There was one that I found that didn't work. I know. I didn't look at them either, but this one right here, the one where you test tensile strength, there's a materials classroom.
Sebastian pointed us to a different website.
Okay.
But yes. So they're getting ready to present Unit 3, Lesson 2.
There we go. Okay, so we have Unit 3.2. This was one like she was saying earlier that if you look in the notebook and then if you look online, they don't line up. So we're a little confused. We didn't know which one we were doing to start off with. So the big idea of this one is just about manufacturing, to show the process of producing something. Like you design something, you invent something, there's a problem, you design something to help solve the problem with it. Okay, so we have the idea, how do we produce it, how do we manufacture it? And also talking about different properties of materials that you will need to produce whatever it is that you're working on, and to make the product work and deliver it to the masses. So like I was saying, it talks about students having different materials, needing to understand the characteristics of those materials, how to classify those materials, and understanding how those materials will work or won't work for whatever the goal is, so to speak. So categorize the materials.
The activity in this is going to end up being, they're going to come up with a material or something that they could duplicate, where they could use the same thing for two different applications, I guess. And so they're going to come up. I came up with one at the end. We have it in there, but try coming up with something, maybe for an automobile where they manufacture the same thing, but they could use it for the car. They could also use it for a trash can or something. But that's what this is ultimately getting to, in terms of having the same quality, same properties and materials, but you can apply it to a couple different applications.
All right, and also make sure that the students know the limitations and the possibilities of each of the materials and things that we use, whether that material will actually work for what you need it to, or whether it won't at all. So materials test here, like measuring tensile force and tensile strength and things of various materials to understand if they will even work for the purpose you need it
That's
for.
the one thing that didn't work.
Sebastian had noted that that didn't work as well on there. He just pulled up, he went to YouTube and pulled up tensile testing and stainless steel tensile specimen. Immediately pulled up one, and he said that there are, what university? He said there's a university.
The one that was on here was like London University or something like that. But these were
They
type
said
two.
in Kansas, there's a university that does that testing.
Yeah.
I don't remember which one he said it was, but.
Yeah, go ahead. These I have on mine that will open up the actual files. So go ahead and click on that. Go ahead and click past them, and past them.
Hey, those
Oh,
are
good
the
open.
time they did open.
All right, so this is the presentation that you would give to your students right off the bat, where kind of like these guys were showing, it shows the big idea, and it tells you, and that's the thing that I like about this, is that it's got the lesson plans already made for you, and it was nice being able to do the lesson and have present it to everybody that it kind of gets you to explore this and see what all is in here. Whereas when we were doing it before, we were just doing the activity, but actually getting on here and exploring ourselves kind of forces you to do it. It goes through all the material types that there are, and then it starts explaining here the functions of the materials that you'd be talking about. So tensile strength, your load, fatigue strength, it goes through all of those. It gives you all the vocabulary that you would need already for this. And so the one that, there we go. The thing that we came up with was you could use a basketball and a globe. They're the same shape. You could use rubber for the globe. You could use, it doesn't matter if the globe is bouncy or not, because you're generally going to not dribble it, but, if it was, it would be all right. That'd be something that would maybe interest the kids or something a little bit more when they're looking at a globe, if you can toss it around the room or bounce it. The one that I have in my room wouldn't do much. But they're the same size. They have a lot of the same properties. You would go into looking at cost of manufacturing and that kind of stuff. Would be how you could tie it into some other things, the economics of that kind of thing. So, that's just kind of the end as we came. You would give them, one of the things is you give them modeling clay where they can actually model what they were going to be doing. So, like I said, it kind of tied in pretty good with what you guys ended up doing. You would sketch it, but in this one you would also, model it. 2.2.
That was everything was in that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Talked about Autodesk with Google and Dinner. It was brought up in another group, iPad, because I know a lot of you have iPads in here. There's an app called Site Space. I don't know if any of you guys have used it. Site Space is one of the other apps that you could use to do some of the drawings. The other suggestion in this one from the other group was to put the periodic table in there. If you're going to talk about tensile strength and you're going to show them about force and measure and stuff, If you want to throw science in there, it would be an easy opportunity to throw in there what materials, what alloys make up different things and the strength. Because in that slide, I believe it talked about steel,
Yep.
copper, aluminum, and something. There was like 4 that was listed in there. But kids aren't readily going to go to aluminum as a hardened material. So breaking some of that stuff down, you draw your science teacher in. They just, Sebastian went to Google Images, I believe, and pulled up a periodic table. He put it in that PowerPoint, which I thought was a great add-in. And the other thing that we discussed with the group was everything for manufacturing. In that PowerPoint, nothing deviates between what is standard parts and non. So he got talking about how in manufacturing, if you're going to make a car, there are standard parts, there are universal parts, and to overlook that would be an oversight. So these are some recommendations I'm going to be making to nationals to try to put some of that stuff in there. But if you haven't ever seen a tensile strength test, which I hadn't seen, it was phenomenal in there. And I thought there was a graph. Is there a graph in that PowerPoint, or is that something that was in that tensile?
That must have been intentional because I never saw a graph.
Okay, because he showed us where the point when you're doing a tensile strength, it's pulling it, it's not compacting it and forcing it, it's pulling it apart. And there is a point real early on when you're stretching something that immediately it shows a graph on the tensile YouTube thing, I guess, that he pulled up, shows that's the point of no return. Once it's actually been, and Alex said it happened real quick, that there was a little deviation and then it did like a plateau. When you've bent a material and you've conformed it, you've stretched it, it can't go back. And students don't understand that. It's kind of like, I brought up I like to bring a lot of personal things into whenever I'm trying to teach something, and I tried to tell kids, like construction, those of you that's done construction totally understand, when my house burned, was it 14, 16 years ago, the insurance company would not allow us to build on the existing foundation. I didn't understand that. I was like, the house is gone, let's build back, let's do it. Well, the materials and the strength from the heat would draw it out of the concrete, would lessen the materials. The one corner where the fire had started, they said, would also ruin the limitations of the strength of rebar and all kind of stuff. I didn't think about that, so we had to literally demolish the whole house and start all new. Students don't think about those things as well. So there's a lot of, in that manufacturing part and materials, a good exploration and a lot of things to go into in that point. And Sebastian also suggested just grabbing Ziploc bags and put materials in there, paper clips. What do you have in there? He had paper clips, he had some wooden pieces, erasers, whatever. Get them explore the materials and what it would be good for. So there are a lot of things you can do with this one and take kids down that road. Like I said, science drawing would definitely be that periodic table. So I want to point that out.
And I was going to say, Wichita State has the Institute of Aviation Research, and they have some things there that deal with like tensile strength and that kind of thing.
That's what I think he pointed out, was Wichita State University had a tensile strength.
I've done a bridge project, build a bridge where you use tensile strength, you know, and you hang weights from it, and that's pretty good activity for tensile strength.
There you go. So,
Glendale's Tech also has some things,
is it really?
but not as extensive as Wichita State.
Okay, let's do AJ, Josh, and Brian. We'll take a break after theirs. And then Robin, Eric, you'll be next with Tammy and London after that. These guys are doing Unit 3, Lesson 3.
Fly by the seat.
I would never give you that kind of person. Ever.
Thank you for taking the time to do that.
No, it is annoying music.
I'll toss in real quick before they start. The separate paper I just gave you, the one that's all by itself, is actually 2 lessons ahead of the one that we're talking about. That's one of the things I liked about all this stuff is that it planned ahead for you. So this paper is just the diary that they're going to start keeping when we start this one. It has nothing to do with this lesson itself, just so that they have this ready to go for 2 lessons down the road. So that's ready to go whenever we, as a class. But just so you know, it doesn't have anything to do with it. Just show you an example of what kind of things you'll see in there.
Preemptive.
Right.
Great.
Well, they're setting up another thing that I thought about manufacturing. I don't know how far away all of you are from the Wichita area, but the manufacturing lesson made me think of one of my former students or TSA officers is now working at Spirit. And I didn't realize as he was telling me all about Spirit that they no longer make planes, they make parts to planes. So I got thinking that would be a great opportunity that if you could do a field trip to do that. And what is it, Frank Lloyd Wright Weber, what's his name? Yeah. They're getting ready to do construction. A lot of these tie in. Once you've gone over these units, you could hit a tour day. I know that schools are shutting down on field trip days, but when you can use little things in an area, that would be a neat add-in and opportunity for you guys. But I told my student that every time I get in a plane, I think of him and hope that the part that he made for whatever plane I'm on was built right and made out of the right material. Say that again. Do I know?
I thought I saw you guys hit close because it looked like you were on and then you closed.
Like what the process they have to go to test them. Oh, yeah, this was Gay's thing. Gay, you should have jumped in on this one. When we were talking about manufacturing, her husband works for Union Pacific, right? And she was talking about the technologies that are involved of testing the railways and stuff that they have to do. And we're hoping that she can go video the process that they go through and then put that up for you guys, put that out there as a Google document or Drive, whatever, so that you guys can show your students, they can start to understand exactly what those processes are and that it is in everyday life. That's just to get stuff to and from. I think I was figuring it out. Got flies by the seat of your pants. How's that work?
It's fine. I do it every day. But we're gonna have fun.
Okay.
All right, there we go. We're ready?
We're in.
Okay, we have Unit 3, Lesson 3, and it's on construction. Kind of a snapshot. Kind of the main idea of the whole thing is talking about defining the word infrastructure. It's kind of a big idea going through. The first activity is a food log, and it really goes to lesson 5 in this. The only thing I could see how it ties to ours is if you're building a house, you're planning your lunch for the week when you're building it.
But that's a neat thing they've got going on there, the food log thing, because when it's a food log for a week long, you don't want to wait till you're needing the food log to give them the food log to keep. So this is giving you the file that you're going to need a week away as you're doing your lessons to get ready. Probably a neat idea, so you can move a little bit faster and more efficient.
On the engagement there, that file 3.31, that is really just a handout, and it just wants you to have the kids define in their own words what's infrastructure, and then do a little research and get a better idea, and then at the end come up with a new definition. Exploration has some videos. You want to go to that one? This is a time-lapse video of building a home. Kind of just goes through step by step.
That's your goal?
My time-lapse, I normally start a project and it doesn't get done for 3 years. So time-lapse is great. I can show my wife I did this in a minute and a half. Time-lapse is, some of my classes actually use time-lapse, and it's kind of neat. But that's kind of exploration. There's some HGTV, DIY, all of those great shows that I watch just to get ideas, but can't do. The explanation, we'll bring that to you guys in the presentation. Yeah. The presentation part just goes through a lot of different, goes from building materials to different construction techniques.
Slideshow, stop, hit slideshow.
Kind of starts off with residential versus commercial. Really not a whole lot of difference there as far as what we're building. As he's going through it, it starts to talk about what kind of materials are you going to use. Are you going to be building are your materials wood? Is it sod? Is it, earth ship would be recycled materials. That would look like something we have at the farm right there, hay shed, using straw bales. He goes through a lot of different materials. One that interests me, if I was going to build a home, would be the SIPs, which goes back there a little bit, the structural insulating panels. Really going through this, I mean, my ideas as a teacher is, I'm not an expert, so I'd probably bring in somebody that is in construction. A lot of the different ideas they have there, I mean, most people who build houses, they don't, I mean, it's wood and insulation. These SIPs are kind of a new thing that they're using. Basically, it's they look like a marshmallow squished between two graham crackers. It's all basically plywood, and then there's a polymer inside of it for the insulating factor. Little different methods there as far as how you put it together. A lot of those that I see, I mean, you have a crane of some kind lifting those large panels and putting them in place. I don't know much about the earth link or earth ship. This is where they use recycled materials. But really, as far as what the kids do, there is, within this lesson, there's actually a paper to write where they have to research one of these methods and write a paper going through different, what materials are used, where do we find these types of buildings, what part of the country uses these different materials. And that's kind of as far as what the kids are doing, it's more research and writing. There is one lab. Do we have the other one? We actually brought all the stuff for you to do this. It's out in the car. But basically what the lab consists of is, you're given a variety of materials and you have to build, two walls out of the materials you have. And you actually have to scale it down. The instructions say you have to scale it down to 1/10 the size, and you have to include a door and a window. So there is some hands-on with this as well, besides just writing the paper.
The hands-on, you're making a section of a wall. You're actually having the students, okay, realize the wall is not just a wall, you've got layers going on there. In those layers, in the case of the materials they're using for this wall, they're using clay. They're providing you with some grass, chopped up grass that you can use as a reinforcing material. They're providing you with some balsa wood. The idea behind it being to understand that you're combining the features of several different materials. It's building upon the previous lessons that they had with thinking about tension strength, thinking about compression strength, thinking about the properties of those materials. Now you're trying to apply those properties to what you need for a wall. So by itself, clay and mortar, not really that strong, but you combine it with some other materials, rebar, grass, in the case of reinforcement. This was one of the videos that was but it's definitely a good layout. We didn't find many of the links didn't work. What you run into as far as using linking with the internet is some links change, and that happens. But a lot of times, if you're planning ahead and working ahead, and you realize that you've got a dead link, you can a lot of times find a reasonable enough drop-in for what you need to say. And that's just a matter of getting on Google and trying to find it. One suggestion I personally have is, if you're going to be relying real heavily on YouTube, YouTube sometimes video, and you have no idea why. What I do when I have to show a YouTube video is, I go out there to one of those YouTube download programs. There's several of them that run standalone, that you don't need any, you don't have to download, add on any software, and it allows you just to download the video, so you don't have to wait on that video to spool up and download. One of the things I did to get ready for this presentation was I downloaded all the files. They were ready to go. So some thoughts there.
Assessments just about how they do on the paper and such. The only thing I remember, like on the paper, there's, I think in that handout, it kind of, there's rubrics that go along with reading all of that, which I think is good. Same thing with the lab. The other thing that was kind of tied in, it kind of goes back to drawing. There's some drawing out floor plan. So it kind of goes back and ties in there as well. Really how it applies to other classes, shapes, going to be geometry.
The model they have you build, they ask you to do it to scale. So there's some math going on with that. There's the material science going on there.
Yeah, most of the math is not going to really apply to the metric system of buildings. So as far as the science side, you're using English, really the materials will be the only thing science-based.
When it's time lapse, it shows you to planting trees and stuff. What about science tie into?
You tie into earth science.
We're coming from materials to this. What about tying in geothermal plates, heating the cooling of the house? Where you can take these steps further. Like I said before, when you stop and think about, is it the science that drove the technology, or the technology that drove the science? When it comes to materials, what goes in those materials, you could do some definite science breakdown of what is stronger. Once again, going back to construction, are you able to test them? Which is stronger, which is not? That would be something that I would suggest.
After seeing that, I see really how ours then goes into yours.
How do you get it? All right, thank you, guys.
Questions? Concerns? Comments? All the above? None of the above. All right, good job, guys. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll let Rob and Eric, you guys can get ready, and everybody can refill their drinks, use restroom breaks if they need to real quick.
Play loud. I just wrote down Brian.
You check.
But it's all the other resource, so. Yeah. What's the flight manual that you find? Okay. Yeah, so this shows.
That class is junior.
I don't do this Wednesday. I mean, IPO, input process outputs, and all design patterns that you can accept. Obviously, there's so it's just showing you how you can enter a system, calculate the status of the display and rules. Yeah.
You don't want to do anything.
This is learning about the unreal beauty of this I like the shows the calculation and then when I go down to back to
This one, you guys get all your answers. Well, you know.
I love that.
What's that? It's kind of a simple.
Why are you expecting so much?
Okay, I think everybody's back in here. So they're doing unit 3, lesson 4, and license.
So unit 3 is all about communication. Lesson 4 is information and communication. The big idea, information and communication systems greatly impact the quality of life and are essential components to business and industry that are rapidly expanding. And then the purpose of this lesson is just basically talk about or show students how communication impacts society. There was a couple different options under the engagement part. You could pick either of the two. The first one is just a writing prompt for the journal that they could write in. The second one would be to show clips from video
human machine, machine to human, or machine to machine. And they suggested using Apollo 13 and October skies as some of those possible video clips that you could show. I do know that one of the links that the very first link there, it's a link for, I think it's October Sky, if I remember right, just the movie itself. It's no longer hot anymore. Each student will examine one or two social networking sites and determine how the networking communication various messages to persuade, entertain, educate, control, or manage. And the two suggested sites that they suggested using were LinkedIn and Moto. But I don't think that there's anything wrong with trying to teach students how to properly use social media. So I don't think there's anything wrong with using some other social media websites. I know actually the last time we were sitting here, I was getting emails from the principal because all of a sudden Yik Yak started playing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Yik Yak, but it's a social media app that you can get on your phone, and basically it allows you to post things anonymously. And so there was all kinds of bullying and harassment, and it got pretty ugly. And so our principal was able to get a hold of the people that do Yik Yak, and they were able to at least shut Yik Yak off around our school, but it still happens obviously outside of the school hours and stuff. So I don't think there's anything wrong with taking this lesson and expanding it and making it more of the social responsibilities that you have when you're doing social media and things of that nature. They do have a presentation. We can just take a look at it real fast. It's just like the rest of the presentations. The big thing that they're kind of focusing on here is this slide here, where you have a source that it encodes, a transmitter, a receiver. Then you go to your decoder, your storage, your retrieval, and your destination. So that's kind of the main key concept that you're trying to get your students to understand.
The thing is in today's day and age with students and the technology and devices that they have, it's a big piece, but I don't think they really understand what's really going into that. When we talk about social media, Facebook was one of them. We'll show you an example of a student project that you could do with this that I saw another teacher using, which I thought was a really neat idea. And then, with kids right now, Twitter's a big thing. And those are other kind of communication pieces you can use. And the one we're going to show you fits with either Facebook or Twitter. You can do it with either or.
So that was the presentation. Then the design brief. Basically what the design brief is, or the big culminating activity for this one, is that you're going to develop a nonverbal communication that is designed to persuade, entertain, educate, control, or manage a peer group. And so basically the only thing you need for this activity is as many computers as you have students. I guess you could divide them up into groups, so 2 or 3 kids are at one computer. But basically it suggested 25 computers and have each kid come up with their own. I did one, well, let's look at the design brief a little bit more. Basically, the big thing is it's going to be nonverbal, which is going to be kind of doing this activity with my students in the past, something similar to this, and nonverbal part's going to be the hard part. So this was my sample. It's kind of hard to see, but the 9 core technologies, I just listed each one, got a picture, and then kind of talked about each one in the description. Rob found a video on YouTube, and we won't watch this whole thing because it's almost 3 minutes long, but it's a nonverbal, I think it just is a PowerPoint.
It's explaining what a communication system is, and how it goes about.
And it's talking about those same things, the input, the transmitter, communication receiver, all that stuff that we saw on that slide that we were showing you from the lesson. But it's just a basic animation. I'm going to kind of get through some of this so you can kind of see it as it continues on. Just another example of what students could produce with that design brief. So I'm going to get out of that, go back to
Go back to your next slide.
which one?
No, one that you created.
This one?
So does it tell you in this
It just says it has to be related to technology.
that you use the 9
That's,
core
yeah,
technology because it's one of the first things introduced?
yeah. So you, I mean, you know, you could use these as like posters to hang up around the room, but it depends on what parameters you set on the design brief itself, I guess. Because like that video, obviously you're not gonna be able to hang that video up, but if you wanted us to have posters or something around the room that students can use as reference as they're going through things, you could do something like this, or you could make it a video like the example that we found on YouTube. Revisions, you know, you might possibly reconsider the nonverbal part and go ahead and allow them to make videos, because students get really excited about making videos, it seems like. Especially, it depends on your school, I guess. More and more teachers are incorporating videos into the class, so it's kind of becoming, you know, oh, we gotta make another video type of thing. I mean, I don't know what your school situation's like, but a lot of times, at least in the past, students get really excited about making videos.
We have, I know at our high school in Annandale, we have about 4 different areas now that are having students create videos for projects, because essentially, they don't need to have a cell phone to have a video camera. And they're, you know, sometimes they do, you know, they might do a promotion, they might do a campaign of some sort, but they're doing some type of short video, and you know, they do get excited about it, and then there's a content behind it, so they get excited about the project just because it is that. They like doing video, essentially.
We talked about the parameters already, but you know, maybe you want to create posters that you can print off on your plotter or whatever and hang around the room. You just kind of have to, or you know, maybe there's an area of technology that you want to, maybe you want to talk about just the communication side, so you're will allow students to maybe pick from, you know, phones or something to make their poster or their presentation just in that area. And then the other thing that we talked about already was make sure you're using this opportunity to discuss the consequences of social media. The other thing too is that, you know, there's not a lot of math and science concepts in this unit, and there may be some other things that you can do, especially for that design brief, that might have more science-related concepts put to it. I know that I do, with my communications unit, I do like a little simple Morse code thing where I actually give them materials. It'd be more of a hands-on thing that they're actually building. Give them the materials and do some kind of a Morse code where we run wires across the room and they're sending and decoding Morse code messages from one student to another. To do more of a competition thing, you know, like the cranes, who can hold the most weight and stuff. It means kids get into that kind of thing. Another thing that I've done is I've walked my kids down to the gym and they get into groups and they have to use nonverbal communication to communicate with one member of their group to get through like a maze that I take down on the floor. So whether it's using buzzers or whistles or something like that, that kids have to communicate with each other or communicate to a student that's got a blindfold on that's walking through the maze, and you can have that timed, and that way there's that competition element wrapped into the lesson too, so that you can get them, you know, excited and fired up about doing the activities. Rob also found
this. This was a project from another teacher I thought fit because it was talking about social media, or it was talking about different types of communication in social media. And this is actually a project that I believe it was our history teacher. He's not there anymore. I'm trying to give an example. These are templates that you can go download from Facebook or from this site. You can just Google search them on images, Facebook student template, and they have word ones. It's a way to make the activity go a little quicker because I know how crunched you are on time already as it is in class, but it's a really cool project. You could pick any person, you know, or event or something from a time period or from a science area or a math area, and then they have to come up with, and they have to search and find out who their friends have been in that time period because it's so, you know, because of the Facebook not being there. And then you can tie it into, they have to have pictures from that type of sequence or event or whatever it is that you're discussing, and then they actually have to have posts, and those posts have to be related to like that topic or subject area that was in there. It was a project that he had done, and we had a faculty meeting, and every time we have a faculty meeting, whoever's hosting the meeting in their room, they have to show something that's going on. I thought it was a really neat project. And I thought you could tie this into this lesson as well.
And this is a template for.
It's just a Facebook template, so I don't have
It's
to
in
make, you don't have to make the blue border of the profile. All I have to do is go in and insert text and talk, and go in and add the pictures and type in. And it's a real easy way to create their page for whatever person it might be, person or a group or whatever from that time period.
It's a Word document, so you don't have to actually have Facebook, like
You don't have
Facebook
to
at our
create a
school's
Facebook
blocked, so
account.
you don't have to actually
Because
have
most
Facebook.
of it's usually blocked in every school anyway. It just saves you from having to do anything with it being online. They can go in and find the sources and put their own information in there. So
That's pretty much the question.
Something about that, you all know I've been sick and we were here for 2 days, so I ended up at school for a little over a week. When I came back, all of my students were like, "You're back." They would never say that they missed me, but they're back. It was like that day, that one-on-one. I will also tell you that, a couple years ago, I had kind of a crazy thing happen. I'd gotten sick, I had allergies, and I got sinus infection really bad, so throat. After going to lots of specialists and everything, my brain and my vocal cords stopped responding to each other. I tried to talk and nothing would come out, so I had no sound for over a month and a half. I was still teaching, talking about kids, so like, you say, there was that element where we're still carrying on, and I'm just typing up everything, kids are all full multimedia. Yes, I get that, but then it was like, they need to hear your voice, where you can understand a whole lot better than how you do that. After about a month and a half, I had to start going to speech therapy, and when I was talking to him, I kind of got to the specialist, and I know my talk, I can talk to the best of them, but my specialist had said that my brain shut down, my vocal cords in order to protect them. So I didn't have any vocal cord damage, but they stopped communicating, so I had to learn how to make my vocal cords vibrate again. In order to make sound. So that kind of got them, and they're like, we just need a voice. And so I found an app, a natural reader that will talk for you. They're like, it's not supposed to be free. So they struggled big time because even though I was still there and we were still doing the stuff, they were not giving me a voice. So then afterwards, when I was sick, so they were like, did you lose your voice? Because they say that it's going to happen again and that my vocal cords will be stuck. So I have to be very, very careful with that. But I did not realize how much there was something like they listen to my voice. And so now we're going to it because I know I have a singing voice and everybody loves my voice. But so that aspect, we were talking about that, yes, they're looking at my rhythms and the iPad and talking to another, but when there's that instruction part, they need your voice. And I did not realize, even though every day we do stuff, you were so always behind just because I could do this stuff. Yes, I talk faster than people, but they miss that aspect of it. So those kids got in there, got a real long lesson about what happens from year to year, how many things that it can affect, and what happens. But just to share that communication part is good. We've done this for social media, but the verbal communication is big.
Yes, I have one question. When you saw this unit, because we're going in order, would you have put this unit in this order? Would this been where you placed it?
probably would have switched it a little bit in the video at the beginning to give them the idea of what the whole thing is. But we were communicating via email.
But I mean, but in the, this is unit 3. Unit 3, lesson 4.
Yeah.
Would this be where you kept it?
I see.
Because it's about communication. We had that discussion because communication is such a strong point. You're starting to talk about manufacturing, you're talking about construction, materials, all that kind of stuff. And then we get to unit 4 and we're finally talking about communication.
Yeah, it does seem like it would make sense to put it earlier.
That's kind of, I kind of wonder what you guys thought because I kind of agree with the other group that this might be an earlier lead in to a lot of the other ones. What else is my comment? Question, comment? I definitely like that template. That's a neat thing. A lot of language arts used in this one. This is an easy one to throw at speech teacher, language arts. They're going to get some of these concepts, so it's a reinforcement by the time they get to you.
There is there is a typo in the PowerPoint too. Like the information is spelled on a couple of different slides.
What slide is that?
It's still slide 7, 6, 7. 6 and 7 are information that's spelled on.
That's not a good thing to do. It's national curriculum. Math and science, I was talking with Josh a second ago that some of the tie-ins are hard. Like we said, there's not math and science readily available to this. But when you get into that encoder, there is some definite science. It's whether you draw it out. So I'm hoping that we can work with nationals enough to make some more of those connections for you guys, because if you're centralized in the tech ed lab and you're not thinking about math and science, and it's not, you don't have to hit all those standards, you still can tie those standards in. And I think that there needs to be that connection, because when you're talking about the encoder, decoder, all that kind of stuff, you're directly talking about what happens with a computer. And it's how in depth you go with it. And once again, the science drives technology, or technology drives science. It happens both ways, and depending on what you're talking about specifically, there is a lot there.
That's kind of why I supplement when I do my communication with that Morse code, because it's talking about simple circuits and things like that too. So it kind of helps tie it in.
The last one was on construction, which one of the things I was going to suggest is when you're talking about kids and you're trying to get real world application and this ties into communication, in order to build anything, I live out in the country, and I still, if I want to do an add-on on my deck or something else to my house, I'm supposed to get a permit. So if you want to start driving home real world application, you're going to start talking about land permits. Who do you have to communicate? General contractor. What does a general contractor do? All these steps that kids don't fathom and tie in is where you guys come in. Mathematically, some of that stuff, you go out into contractors, they want some money. Sometimes they don't want money if they're just doing a general contract and bringing people in because they're going to get their feed in from other subcontractors coming in. However, it's easy for the construction to draw in mathematics with geometry and that kind of stuff. Information and communication, I think, is one of those things. You can hit several areas. But once again, I just think this lesson needs to be a little before this lesson 4 might be a better.
Yeah. And then I think their unit too, where they're talking about sketching and doing that stuff, would be great for a lot of those kids that haven't been exposed to that when they're using their journals and they're drawing their sketches and I think it would be better if that unit was further in the lessons.
But once again, that is the flexibility. If you would see a piece of engineering by design is going to be best utilized with your students before, pull that piece in and do that beforehand. I really like your piece you're drawing with the 9 core technologies. I like that. Oh, and by the way, you guys that have PowerPoints, I'm going to share them with everybody else. So before you leave today, you're going to have to email those to me. So as soon as you get done, if you want to hop on and email your stuff to me.
It just helps all of us be better. I appreciate you.
Because Eric, now that you've created that neat slide, we're just all going to steal it from you.
It's all right.
Carolyn, do you mind if we add something on the construction part?
No, that's great.
We're just talking, and I'm sure people around Greensburg had this, when we had our tornado, we need to talk to people about companies, because they come in and making sure that they are reputable, being about preferences. Even 2 years ago, we had a bad hailstorm, and there were businesses we've never ever heard of are coming in to make sure, that those that kind of
fly-by-night, making sure that if you are giving somebody that you've done your research with them, if you're planning on them doing something, a big project for you, instead of just the average Joe or somebody on the street.
Yeah, and you talk about the building permits after the tornado, that was a huge issue in Worthington because they weren't allowing people to rebuild houses on the same lots because now they said the lots were not big enough. So you needed to have your lot and your neighbor's lot if you were gonna put one house on it. You know, and so the whole part of town that was destroyed by the tornado, they completely rezoned all that. And you had to have a house of a certain size. And one lot was not big enough to put the house up on.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
And
they-
they had trouble kind of with neighbors, like, well, I'm staying, no, you can't stay, I need your, kind of back.
I need your
and
lot.
forth.
I was here for, that kind of stuff, well, why don't you, move here, or why, wouldn't you be better suited to be, and it was just, ridiculous, a lot of the things. And going back to the construction part, we had, when they were talking about the thermal, what was it? Thermal sheets that you were talking about, it said the marshmallows, there's all kinds of new construction things going up, people had houses brought in, people built houses, from the ground up, they had all these new, things that they were trying, and I was telling Carolyn, with us, we ended up buying a basement that was left, we bought a foundation and built a house on a foundation that was left, but we had to have structural engineers come in and inspect the basement, and ours was fine, but the people next door, they had to tear their basement out and then pour a whole new basement before they put a house up. So you can, when you go through something like that, it brings in the things, and there's still people that are still mad, and that was 13 years ago, fighting over lots to put houses back up.
Well, I was saying, another thing is, if something like that happens, like a tornado or something like that, and the house is in a flood zone, you can't rebuild
Big
in the
deal
flood
with FEMA
zone.
there.
Like, for instance, when we built the new grade school in Sterling, that's in the flood zone, we had to take and build the grade school up a certain amount in order to.
Well, that was the other thing there. There was a lot of homes that were built in the flood zone, and they refused to let those people, even though they owned those lots and they were there, they could not put a house there. So they had to find.
Yeah, the only way you can build it is if you can build it up.
Yeah, they wouldn't even let them do that. They said this is.
But once again, those are teachable moments to go back and have those students do. That's history research. There's construction. There's mathematics. How much more was it going to cost people to stay in these versus sell and move on to other spots? So I like those teachable moments because the kids start to understand. Oh, that happened to us when Greensburg was obliterated. They went with a whole new technology of building. I've talked to some of those people, and the homes and the technologies that are in some of those homes are phenomenal. But the cost that was associated with that was astronomical for some of those people. Some of those people are never going to actually recoup their costs. They were old enough that when they built those houses, they built it for the long haul for whoever's going to be in that house, but they're kind of financially messed in that situation. So some good teachable moments. And I like when you're talking about doing the blindfold thing. Guys, leadership plays a huge role in this. I've done a lot of leadership training, and we do things like that. Nonverbal communication is a big one, where are they able to communicate with others to complete a task? And I take yours one step further. I literally put chairs and road obstacles in there so that they have to figure out.
I've done that before, I just don't want to get anybody hurt.
Right.
You get some kid that's just
plowing through.
Just plows through. That's why I always go to the gym and put down some kind of a takedown path, basically.
But that's, once again, you set up a mathematical rubric that says you allow your person to hit something, you're deducted 10 points. And let's see who gets. You put some competition in that one because we don't want to get our person hurt. And that's what when TSA, when we do these things, I'm like, okay, guys, seriously, our object is not to get somebody hurt in this, but you need to do it in the fastest amount of time. You need to communicate well. All those things are good, and kids love it.
I also have another science tie-in with this whole construction thing is these county mitigation plans. And if people understand in your community that it's important to make sure they're involved with the county mitigation plan. I know when we were gonna build our grade school at Sterling, I got very involved with the Rice County mitigation plan so that we had our plan in as part of the activities for the future of tornado mitigation, so that then we would be eligible for FEMA funding. And that helped when we did the improvements at the high school as well as built the new grade school. And every community needs to be aware of those kind of things, because that does make, you could do 75-25, so the federal government picks up 75% and you pick up 25%, that's huge. Of the cost of the storm shelter that went in our buildings. So, just something to keep in mind so that kids can actually start to see how real world some of these things that we're talking about is.
Okay. Well, that moves us to Tammy and Martin. They're doing Unit 3, Lesson 6.
Ours was over telemedicine. Ours was actually pretty short. We have a lot of stuff that we want to share with you guys. So the first part was switch phone. Did it pick it off? No. There we go. You and 3 of your friends decide to hike the Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine, starting when the school year ends in June. A month from the trip, 2 of your friends realize they need to get a summer job and they quit. And so you continue hiking and you fall 14 feet down from the mountainside. When you reach the plateau, you realize you cannot put any weight on your right leg. What do you do? Okay, so this one, they wanted their course of action, so they're in the middle of nowhere. What are you gonna do?
Get my back home.
Okay, yes, probably. Now, what if you're in the middle of nowhere and you can't, you have no cell phone reception?
Back home.
Oh, I thought you said cell phone. Okay, so you're gonna have that with you.
Oh, yeah, well, that's what I think.
Okay, good. You're one of the few then. Okay, most people wouldn't do that. So then with this, your course of action, and then you have to agree with your partner. With this one, I think most of us here are from more rural areas that, for our hospital, we have a lot of telemedicine. So with this using, with our telemedicine, using technology, intelligence, robotics, materials, perceptual psychology, telecommunications, in order to get information. So whether it be still images, remote monitoring of vital signs, continuing medical education, all of that is part of our telemedicine. Monitoring, sending, receiving x-rays. At our hospital, we do have an x-ray tech, but we don't have anybody who reads the x-rays. They'll email them. And I believe they email them here to Hutch. Somebody reads them from Hutch and then they give the results back. So with them, I'm sure a lot of smaller hospitals do that because they can't afford to keep somebody on staff.
We also have, we don't have an MRI machine at our hospital, but we do have one of the portable semi-trailers. They bring the MRI machine there and they just schedule them and they just run everybody through as many as they can in the day, and then they send those results of their MRI on to whoever needs to read those. Several years ago, my mother-in-law had a lung transplant, and she had that in Denver. So every time she would get the slightest cold or anything like that, we were on an Eagle Med plane, to Denver. That's where she had to go. But before we go, they would take all of her vital signs, do all of her stuff at the hospital in Boisington, and they'd have all that stuff sent to Denver by the time, the plane would get there. So there was a lot of, and just everything she had to do leading up to that. We had lots of trips to Denver, but we got to the point where we could do some video conferencing and stuff like that, which was helpful because that's about a 6-hour trip to Denver from where we are. So that was handy for us. But
My mom has been having some heart problems and has been to Katy Med Center. And so her first doctor, she got referred there. What they're doing now, the telemetry machine, that she has a little machine that she has little patches that she hooks up onto her and takes a recording, so she'd have to do them several times throughout the day. The only thing is landline phones have to stick around for a while because they cannot communicate with the cell phone. So she of course didn't have a landline phone. I did. I have to keep I'm keeping mine just so that she can send when she has to hook up to that machine again. You have to have it to a landline phone in order for it to communicate. It will not communicate with cell phones. So they were able to get those results. So they would monitor for a couple weeks, and then after that, whenever she was having problems, she had to then start the recording. So that way we weren't having to go to the hospital. They could have all that information for our next checkup, and was able to do a lot of stuff. To know what to do very, very quickly with getting those readings, without actually having to go to the doctor or having, we don't have a specialist that if anything happens with us, you're either going to be life watched either to Wichita. Sometimes they will take you to Hayes if it's because they have the DeBakey heart, but most of the time you're going to Wichita. No ifs, ands, or buts about it because we don't have the capabilities at our local hospital in order to do that. So for us, we see a lot of telemedicine, and probably for most of you guys too, if you do have a local hospital, there would be a whole lot of telemedicine going on.
So if it were me, since our hospital is right across the street from the high school, I'd probably try to schedule a visit for my kids when the MRI machine is there, so they could kind of go through and see what they do and how they. Of course, some of our students have been in the machine; they've had MRIs done there. We just got a new digital mammography machine, so that would be something else that we would maybe try to take a look at while we were there. But the rest of this lesson that's on here, there's a short video that talks about Haitian relief efforts and how they were using telemedicine for that. And then the assessment is for the kids after they watch the video, they go through and they read this article, and then they identify all the different types of telemedicine that is that's being talked about and used. So that's kind of, ours is real short, real simple. There was no construction of anything. It was paper pencil, internet research lesson. But like I said, we could really see it in action where we are. So.
And I'm going to say for rural communities, there's quite a little bit of grant money that's put out by the U.S. Department of Agriculture for telemedicine, and that's how some of the hospitals that take advantage and medical clinics that take advantage of that. That's how they get some of the specialized equipment. I know in case some of you know I had thyroid cancer and had to be radiated really heavily. Well, part of I had a rare type of thyroid cancer. The guy who read my pathology stuff was in Houston. I would have had to fly to Houston and be taken care of down there with hanging in for the telemedicine. So it really can literally change the way they can do some of the things nowadays. So
that was ours.
Any questions?
One of the comments from the other teachers, they lived in Halstead and said that Newton Medical Center has a telemed system. He said it would be worthwhile to do another tour. So, what do you think about the PowerPoint though, all in all?
And if they have
it's not very, it would seem like it kept repeating the same things again and again. I wish that it would have had more, it said something about,
they talk about video conferencing, transmission, here, nursing call centers, and then right here, we're talking about it again. And on the next slide, same thing.
I thought it was almost too big.
Yeah, and it was a little bit repetitive, kind of what we thought about it.
very weird.
Mm-hmm. So.
I know KU Med also has telemedicine. Kids can actually experience of doing a telemedicine lesson where they can connect with the medical provider and see how that actually works. I think that's kind of a neat thing too.
Last year, well, I guess a year and a half ago, when my mom had her procedures done, Now I've been to Children's Mercy, I've been to Wesley, I've not been KU Med Center. They have it down pat. I mean, as far as very efficient, lots of stuff, a lot of people going in and out. They were doing a study then, and my mom looked at me and were like, what? They were assigning people iPods. And if you can listen to your favorite music before going into surgery, does that affect your blood pressure, your heart rate? So they had several different mini studies the days that we were there that my mom was participating in, because they wanted to see, will that really calm you? Will music really help you when they're wheeling you out for surgery? If you're listening to your favorite genre of music. There were several other things that they kept asking, well, we're going to do a study on this. Do you mind if we use the results for this? And some of them were, as far as laying still, or, she had for 12 hours after surgery, she could not move. She had to be flat on a pillow. She couldn't even have a pillow. She had to be flat on the bed. But different things that they were doing to see, does it really help? Does it really benefit us? And so lots of different things that they were doing that I thought, when you think about it, my mom's like, why is music going to matter to me? But then I'm like, but when you think about it, if you were listening to your favorite song, for some people, that kind of de-escalates things. That are some things that, that we wouldn't realize. And I'm like, just try it, Mom, just try it, where it was already very anxious about it anyhow, going in for the procedure. But, they're trying different things. And right now we're lucky that we've not, she's had to go back twice. My sister took her the first time, the second time she could just go on her own. But her doctor then is in Hayes now from Kansas City, so she doesn't have to make that trip always anymore. But a lot of that stuff, the results that she needed, the doctors locally could do it and send in the results, or just through the telemetry system.
Now, the other discussion was a lot of the people in the other one had either had spouses or whatever that had the defibrillators that are all done. And my neighbor, I remember saying, in the middle of the night, it's linked in, it's constantly communicating. So if he started to go into defib or had problems, it's already waking them up and starting to shock him. And she said it's very unnerving at 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're having to dial into a number and figure everything out, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. So medicine is getting kind of very sci-fi. We talked about how, all the things in the Jetsons and Star Trek, the things that we didn't think would happen are starting to happen. I don't know if we've had too many teachers, so I don't know if I shared this with you, but I have 6 children, and my 4th born has a special brain tumor that we're seeking treatment through St. Jude. And Montana decided that she wanted to be a nurse for Halloween. So we're down there, and I told her while we were there, it was 3 weeks ago, we were there the week before Halloween. I said, we'll get you a costume, we'll look, because there was some nurses that said the medical supplies places would be really cool to go to. So we decided we'd do that. So Montana says she told the nurses what she wanted to be, and they're like, well, do you have everything? Montana's like, well, I don't know, because we went and got her a scrub top, and she looked real cute. And they're like, well, you need a pin, and they gave her all these different masks, that she could wear, and gloves, and they were doing all this stuff. And I said, well, I think we're all complete, except I need a stethoscope. And I said, I have plenty of nurse friends back home, they'll let her borrow one. And the nurse leaves the room, and we're talking about it. And I said, I really would buy Montana a stethoscope, but they're really expensive, and I'm not sure at age 12 she's really going to go into nursing yet, so I don't want to spend that kind of money. And the one nurse says, oh, honey, she says, don't spend your money. She says, because by the time she's a nurse, it will be in the door, you will walk through as a patient, and it will be a readout for the nurse of all the vitals and everything, and we will no longer use stethoscopes. And I went, oh, good point. Maybe I won't do that. Nurse comes back in, and she puts a stethoscope, a real stethoscope, around Montana's neck, and she goes, there you go. And I said, I don't think that's a good idea. She goes, no, it's hers. She said, we don't use it anymore. It doesn't work anyway. Montana goes home, and of course she's telling the other kids, she's showing them, and she says, and it doesn't work. And so the kids are putting it on, and they're listening to one another's hearts. And Montana goes, Mom, she lied. And I said, why? She goes, it does 2 work. I said, well, let's just say St. Jude nurses just took care of her, And that was pretty awesome. So there's a lot of teary moments there, but I think they are right. We're moving to medicine where there's going to be a lot of the communication.
Well, telemedicine isn't new. I mean, if you
Right.
think back to that, somebody mentioned the Apollo 13 movie, you know, when those astronauts were in space, they had all those, you know, the biomed sensors and stuff to them all the time, so it's not anything new, just trying to make it better.
All right.
I'm lucky. I have an aunt who works at, well, it used to be Children's Mercy in Oklahoma City, but OU Med. And so whenever we have something going on, I just call her, send a couple pictures, say, okay, what do you think? Because, you know,
Diagnosis.
especially with my first, the doctor's like, oh, would you stop? I'm like, no, there is something wrong. There is really something wrong with my youngest. Last year, she kept complaining and it just hurt to swallow and she hurt so bad and hurt and hurt and hurt. And so we went to urgent care one day on a Saturday, nothing. And the next day she is like begging me to take her back to the hospital. And nothing. The doctor's like, well, there's nothing wrong. I'm like, she's saying it hurts, her throat hurts so bad. They do a swab, no strep, no nothing. Well, then the next day we noticed she has this blister on the top of her foot. So I take a picture of it, I sent to my aunt. She's like, she's been running a few, going through all this. She goes, I think she has hand, foot, and mouth. I'm like, what are you talking about? What's hand, foot, and mouth? Well, then we find out about all of this crazy stuff. My daughter ended up having the worst case that anybody at our doctor's office had seen, and the worst case that my aunt had seen, that the whole bottoms of her feet turned into solid blisters. Well, then come and find out she had them in her throat that we didn't know because we couldn't see. But one of those where I'm like, oh, and on the flip side, my aunt tells me they have disposable stethoscopes. So those people who are contagious, they just open them up out of a little package and then they're done. So one of those things that, you know, we're totally a throwaway society, but I mean, when you think about it, you know, it's one and done. So anyhow, so sometimes it saves us the money. Other times it's one of that reassurance that I'm like, I really think something is wrong with her and I want somebody to look at her again. So, but not everybody has that option, but so we kind of use telemedicine indirectly. I'm like, tell me what I need to say and what I need to ask.
It's a mother's intuition.
It
is. Because had I not stayed vigilant about something was wrong with my daughter, she wouldn't be here today. She's one of the known cases that she had two, and they still can't tell us if the main one broke down and went between her brain cavity and formed the other one, or if there were two distinct tumors. But nonetheless, you talk about sci-fi. They shipped us down to Florida for something called proton radiation therapy. And it looks like it's 3 stories. They showed us it's a 3-story building. So you go in and you're just on the normal level. But when they open that door and you get to see how big it is, it's like a huge gerbil wheel with this table laying in there. And they had to take this flat sheet of plastic, warm it in a warmer, and then conform it to her face. So it was a mesh. She could see out of it. But they bolted that down. They bolted her head down to the table in this great big what looked like a gerbil wheel, and then the sci-fi thing came up right to her head. And of course, at that time they had gone in and opened her brain up, and I didn't know what a fiducial was. I'm like, a what? But kids that don't have surgeries, they put these little pinpoint screws in their head. Well, she had screws from the plate, so they used those to line it up where it would come down every day and go right to that spot. And then they had these what were like medicine cups. They're about this thick plastic, about this big around, and there was a 3-dimensional cutout every place that tumor touched. So did the proton radiation have to touch. And so the one that was in the middle of her head was, I could put my fist down in. That's how big her tumor was. And you stop and think, you put your 2 fists together, that's supposed to be the size of your brain. And her tumor was right in the middle. And what we found out, it was pressing on her optic nerve. It was our eye doctor that finally listened to me when I said, he said she had 20/20 vision. I said, really? I said, did she tell you about her headaches? She would literally curl in fetal position and grab her head and pant like a woman going through labor. So I was like, something's wrong here. Something. Help me out here. Yeah, mother's intuition is better than science sometimes. We skipped over a lesson, so I'm going to go back and do it real quick. Yeah. Because like AJ and Josh and Brian said, they introduced technology here. They introduced to you guys a worksheet on lesson 3. On that unit, or lesson 3. Well, unit 3, lesson 5 is all about agriculture and transportation. And the neat thing about this, there is you've already given your kids the weekly food log, and the weekly food log, you're wanting the students 2 weeks prior or whenever you have introduced that lesson to go through and do the food log. So if they've lost it, you have to print it out again and give it to them and tell them that they've got to do this. And if you're like I am, when it comes to putting this stuff down, it takes you you need to do it that day, and you need to keep track of it because you don't remember what you had for lunch last night, let alone 2 nights ago. So kids will have that challenge as well. So there's that food log again. In here, I don't know what I have down there. The other resources in here, calculating your calorie intake. Some of you may feel that this lesson on agriculture, when it gets into some of this caloric intake, you're thinking you're going back to health science. Well, throw that science piece in there, and then you're going to start making a lot of the connections that you wouldn't normally make, but we're back to math. They're going to have to actually go through here and put the calories of what they've done. It's a very in-depth calorie intake. Once again, the teachers that did this one, last group said they would really get their kids to pull up an app. A lot of them already have them on their phones, the food app to the calorie intake. Let them use that instead of this, which would be fine. But once again, if you want them to print it out, they've got to download, which there are free printers that can download and access your printers in the school. But once again, be a little more technology savvy than I am. Okay. I guess I shouldn't do that every time. And then there's the soybean cleaner, which that's what you guys did in here, the soybean sorter. And that is the design brief for this unit. It goes along with agriculture because you're sorting the beans and the soys and the rice. So this is what we did. We didn't introduce those other things to you, the calorie intake and the food chart to do that. But you get into this. Let me show you. So these are the supporting files that are in there. What else? We'll go to assessment or resources. Resources, they have a couple videos in here. I have not looked at those. The other teacher that did this said they were okay. A lot here to do with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And I think she said one of these didn't work. Lesson 5. I'm not really sure. I guess I didn't write it down. But a lot of opportunities to do a little bit of research. Like I said, the tie-ins that you're going to do, because it talks about transportation and agriculture, this is the opportunity where they're going to do a little research on railways, food car refrigeration. Once again, that's science and technology thrown in there together. And I was going to say harvest time, and then when you're talking about harvest, which a lot of you guys are rural communities, and these kids understand this. They understand the process behind that soybean sorter. They can understand where the yield is and the cost factor. So when you talk about how it went from shipping semis across the United States versus back to railway systems, you can do some tie-ins on cost factors for that. And you talk about genetic alteration when they have to harvest things. There is a lot here if you take it there. In the lesson itself, like I said, there's 3 supporting files, and I just showed them to you. The soybean sorter is the highlight of this one, and the kids will really get into that. But I believe this one has a lot more to it if you utilize it. If you can get in with your home economics teacher and they're talking about things in there and about food costs. I'm sorry, family consumer science. I knew better. I knew better than to say that. Well, it's just like, you don't, well, I want to know, Todd, do you consider yourself a shop teacher or technology ed teacher? Yeah, see? So there is several opportunities on this one to pull in other teachers and other opportunities to do some neat extras, which I don't think that there was. There, yeah, there is this brief constructive response on this one where they write a paragraph. Agriculture includes a combination of businesses that use a wide array of products and systems to produce, process, and distribute food, fiber, fuel, chemical, and other useful products. Describe the resource transported, or describe the agriculture industry in your local community and what types of resources are produced and how those resources transported to the marketplace. So right there, that's the literary contact is in this brief constructed response. But there's a lot you could have kids do.
Carol, another thing that they might be interested in is some of the technology that's in some of the agricultural implements now is just kind of amazing. There's planters, for instance, that they map the piece of ground, if you get my point, where they know, okay, in this part of the ground, you can put this kind of fertilizer and put this much seed in, and it'll change based on the data that they found from the soil testing, because they use the periodic soil testing, and it'll plant based on what the soil testing data says. So
right.
Literally, it'll put different amounts of seed and different types of, and then it'll also, these fertilizer things also going into the machine.
And that's where your extension office comes into effect, because your local extension agent should be able to come out and help understand some of that. Once again, you need to know who your local extension office agent is so that you know if they're going to come do a good presentation or they're just a person that you want to give resources and handouts and stuff to your kids. Because sometimes if they get in there and they're giving you all kinds of stuff about fertilizers and soils and all this kind of stuff, and the kids don't understand it, don't get into it, you haven't done a lot of background for it, you're going to be dead in the water with the kids not understanding where you're going with it. In here, there is the technology literacy, nature of science, physical setting of the earth, or their science benchmarks, and it has all these stuff in here, and mathematics, because standard measurement is what they're doing. Okay, so this doesn't seem like it's a real involved unit, but I think it's one that could be. This says it's 10 hours. With the stuff in here, I don't know that it would be 10 hours, just with what they have here. I'm like, that might be kind of, yeah, kind of scary. The presentation, the PowerPoint on this one, let me see here. It's 10 slides, has the big idea, agriculture. One other thing I'm noticing, a recurring factor with all of these PowerPoints, is that they are extremely wordy. You know, kids will sit through, and some of these PowerPoints, I'm noticing also 22 to 42 slides. The kids, you're either going to have to break it up with things, only do a few every day, depending on what you're going to do. But you're going to, as a teacher, going to have to modify some of these to make sure that the kids understand what this book is giving out of the PowerPoints. Okay. Oh, Cleela, this was the one, transportation and agriculture, that you shared with the other group. There is a grant, community grant for exposure to food.
The fresh fruit vegetable grant,
Yes.
the USDA, and then there's also the community garden grant.
Yeah, that's the one you're
Community
talking
garden
about.
grant, it's $5,000 community garden grant.
So once again, if you get into this one and your school needs money and you can relate some of these concepts, Cleveland can help you figure out how to navigate your way through that grant. I know like our school district's putting in a greenhouse on both sides of the district. So that might be something that would help them utilize this.
The fresh foods and fresh foods, we have at our elementary school, sorry. And it's not just like apples and pears. I mean, it's very easy to try fresh fruits, nothing canned fresh fruits they would normally have. Like, one day we go to the store and my daughter's like, oh, that's like blood oranges. What are you talking about? And she's like, oh, it's like blood oranges or mangoes or papaya or pomegranate. So the fruits that they wouldn't necessarily eat because they never had it, or they never had, exposed to it, maybe the price that they're getting, not just the basic food that they're kind of expanding their taste buds for.
Right. Well, and that brought me to the point with the other group is that when we're talking about the fresh fruits and vegetables and being introduced to them, this would be a great opportunity to talk about some of the locally grown produce.
And there's another grant that's called Farm to School.
Yeah, I was saying, I thought there were several grants you talked about right now. But getting locally understand what comes from our area and having them try those, even having them try a wheat germ before it's processed versus after. The kids need to understand where some of the stuff comes from and how it's good for them. Because if it's good for them, they don't want them. But I remember when we were down in Florida, a bunch of us decided to go to the farmer's market, and it was underneath the freeway. I thought that was the weirdest thing. We literally drove and we're underneath the freeway having the farmer's market. Well, then we found out about a mile and a half over was a huge, I mean, every bit as big as this mall farmer's market. And you talk about stuff that I didn't know what a kumquat was. I didn't know pomegranate. I'd never tasted pomegranate. And the people from Florida, they were like, oh, let's take these back. And I'm like, well, what are we going to do with it? I mean, I'm a pretty good cook, but I've never seen this. And so being introduced to some of that stuff in this lesson is good. And the other thing is, I think it was 2 years ago that the Topeka station did a big news article on the students in the elementary took and put on rubber gloves, and at the end of the lunch period, they took all of the trash and laid out trash bags all over the gymnasium and dumped out the trash and then started sorting it so they could see where the waste was. And as gross as that may sound, if you guys did that, you'd start to see what things your kids are throwing away. School cook has to put it on the plate. Kids don't have to eat it. There's a huge thing there that I think is terrible because we're paying so much money, or you have free and reduced lunches coming in, that your school's paying for it, but if the kids aren't eating it, what good is it? So I love the Fresh Fruits grant, fruits and vegetables, getting those kids to try those and to do some of those other stuff.
Well, I'm going to say, school districts that I've done several of these, school districts that have that's more successful is where they take it, have them try it in, as a snack, and then the food service director then incorporates that later in the school lunch menu. Because if they do it vice versa, I know Sandy told me there's a lot of throwaway of because it's like, I don't know what this is, so I won't try it. But if they try it, where they've been told what it is, and they try it in isolation, not as part of a meal to the grant, then she saw significantly less waste.
Which seems like it's more of an elementary thing, but your high schoolers need to be introduced to a lot of that stuff as well. So, like I said, a lot of opportunities if you utilize this. The other thing with school service, guys, take your kids down to watch the preparation of the food. You would not. I have a friend that has been food service for over 23 years, and from when she started So what she's doing now, she says she spends more time temping food. She has to temp that food in between each round that comes through. Everything has to be temped, everything has to be logged in. All that stuff happens, and your kids don't have a clue of what the process is, even for a school lunch to be made to get to them. So there's some great opportunities of learning for those kids. Right here, I wanted to point out, this says, number 6, explain that scientific laws, engineering principles, properties of materials, and construction techniques must be taken into account to design engineering solutions to problems. That to me is the big idea. This is the big highlight in this section. And this one was right before telecommunication. So, questions, comments, concerns? I know we're throwing a lot of stuff and you guys are like, okay. All right. Oh, history. History would be a great thing for transportation because of the railways and refrigerated cars and that kind of thing. So talk with your history teachers as well to try to get them to help you do some of the research with those kids. Do the timeline of transportation and its evolution. All right, so now we are to David and Adriana. Let's go ahead and get you guys set up. We might let you guys out a little bit early for lunch, after, depending on how long your presentation is. And come back and finish up with some other stuff. Do we need to take a quick break while they're setting up for anybody? Let's take a quick break. Take a break. Mike, you need to
Yeah. You know what? I'll give you a bad rap. I think we're okay.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because just last week, somebody said something that reminded me that nobody said, okay, you guys share the exact same interviews last week.
Yeah.
And it was like,
I'll
that's
figure it out. I'll do it back.
Yeah, electrolytes. Well, they're electrolytes. It's salt and
Yours is help visual, so it is actually, when you look up the driver, so. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I was wondering what they have.
You must have named the
Restaurants in Wow. All right, good shot. Huh?
I'll eat about anything.
Can I throw you guys off because I threw you for lunch? Is there any way we can make it through all this? You guys are like going through that.
No, let's do that about it. How many presentations have you
Yeah, what I was talking about.
The same thing with my group.
We've had 5 presentations in 2 hours.
Also, he's still the thing with Chris.
Just because I'm saying.
That's pretty good.
Okay.
She said the everybody is a lot slower. She can't work. She said it's just, I said, so we've done 5 presentations in 2 hours. It's pretty good. She's like, I just can't believe it. And John Carlin. She's like, maybe it's just because we're chatting about visual research.
You are gonna be out there.
For college credit? Oh,
Now, that's part of the plan is to do that because I know there's some people that I got emails from Maryland.
Like, I thought that we would touch on all this topic, and then I would talk a little bit about this project, and then just go right over into yours.
Yeah.
Is that the right idea? However you do it, or like interrupt me if you want. So I was going to say that it's a lot of presentations are made paper, it's got concepts, like this year. I was gonna say we okay, and how it basically is based on here. Yeah. That's why I was gonna touch on it, but I was just gonna go over that, so I didn't have to. Should we pass out some candy? Distract them?
Yeah, I've got those ready.
Okay. I think we're all back and ready for the next one, which is lesson, or unit 4 lesson. For lesson 1, sorry.
All right, we'll get started. Yeah, like she just said, we are unit 4, lesson 2, talking about systems models. This unit kind of picked us, I think it was the last, maybe second to the last unit up there. So we were a little bit, you know, anxious, I
Thinking what
guess.
was left over, basically.
Yeah.
Up to the way you want it.
Pretty much. We didn't get to pick a litter, that's for sure. But it turned out to be pretty good. Mr. Cheater said that he took away a pretty good message as far as the concepts. I thought it was pretty similar to the last presentation that Tammy in London did, as far as being a paper, pencil, and internet research based lesson. It's a lot about concepts and definitions. Here we have the objectives, just like everybody else has shown. It shows in our supporting files. It's pretty nice though that it puts all the really nice, easy format, and then it gives the presentation, which I'll go over, and it didn't really have an activity. Like I mentioned, it's more writing stuff. Let's see. Our resources, there are 2 resources, they both work. One was for a YouTube video, which is pretty short, only 6 minutes, 22 seconds long. It talks about systems, how they work.
Show it if you like.
I might, maybe a little bit, if there's time. And then this was the other resource that it gave, this internet website. I didn't really find it user-friendly, but it does talk about systems as far as technology. Let me see, where am I at? I'll go and get in the PowerPoint, that way you can hopefully kind of see what it is. So we have the foundation of technology, the systems model, and then it goes into, of course, the big picture. I'll play this. It tells you what a system is, and that is the big idea as far as what I took away from this lesson, is explaining what a system is and explaining how interrelated parts make a system and how they work together to produce an output. Let's see. It pretty simply explained how there's simple or complex systems. It gives the example of a bicycle and a vehicle being complex systems. And then it goes even further into explaining how the bicycle is a simple system and the vehicle is a complex system. Then it goes further into explaining the types of systems. There's biological systems, of course. For both of us, we're science teachers, and so there's, the whole human body system. There's a lot that goes into that. I gave the example of a heart and a brain. Mechanical systems, a thermostat, bicycle, ecosystems, social systems. So this really goes into all sorts of aspects, and it could really, I think, be easily implemented into any class because there's systems in everything. It goes into the inputs, processes, outputs, feedback. an open system versus a closed system. An open system, it gave the example of a microwave, and then a closed system, it gave the example of a thermostat. And then, like I explained, how it's a system is a interrelated parts working together to produce an output, and that's the systems theory. And it really, I think that's what it wants students to take away. Mr. Teeter has a different presentation that he found that he's going to go over. And before he gets into that, though, if you go back to this website, you can see up here, this is only a 3-hour lesson, or it's planned to be a 3-hour lesson. So it is pretty, I would say, simple, very doable. And then
Show me the assignment.
the assignments, yeah. There's this writing journal. So initially it's saying what is a system and what are subsystems. That's the first thing that they're going to do, go into their journal and write about that. And then the second thing would be parts of the system activity, explaining the system model and giving examples.
On the last one, do they ask them to do that worksheet before you go over the PowerPoint or after?
I think it was before. So seeing what they
And then
know.
this one after?
And then this one, yeah, you would give them the vocab words, and then you'd give them that presentation. And then I think it said get in small groups. It's for class based on about 25 students, I think is what it said. And so pretty decent sized class, put them into pairs, and they can research themselves, you know, what is the system, what are the parts of the system. They can choose a system, and then you could even have them, you know, come up and present what system they chose.
That was the engagement activity.
Walk people through that.
That first one.
And then finally, the last activity for them to do is to give me direction, design, brief. They don't need much. Computer with internet access.
Basically, it's a research writing.
And describing, yep. Describing what a system is and how they work, again, and then the parts of it. All right, so I'll open up Mr. Teeter's presentation and let him take it away.
You're gonna click, you can come click on.
I can click for you.
I found that I did research systems theory because I'm not real, I didn't know what it was exactly. I kind of had an idea, but I wasn't sure. I'm not sure if I still know everything that I need to know about it, but they're trying to get kids to understand that to see systems, to see the system in things that we normally encounter. And they go through and systems thinking is a way of looking at things. Very good. Okay, so I found this PowerPoint that kind of explains what's a system, what's not a system, how to identify systems. Go ahead. And most of the research that I did got into computer systems or networking systems or something like that. But I like this one because it used the car example in a specific way. That systems have subsystems that interact with each other, and they're necessary to produce an overall desired goal or an output. This information kind of reminded me of if you ever did the old basic programming, if-then statements. I mean, and in the feedback, it's almost like the scientific method. You know, conclusion refers back to the hypothesis, modify, go on to get to your end result. So it's kind of a way of having the kids look at things a little differently. I think is the big idea to me is look at something as a system, try to pick out the interactive parts. But anyway, this is an example of a card. It just reinforces the idea that the car is a system of working parts, and that the body is has systems that have to work together and to come up with an outcome. Most of the stuff I'm stressing in this material is the input and the action and the output, and then keep going. And then it's okay. Anyway, then they get back into feed mechanism. There's positive feedback. Positive feedback and negative feedback, and I think that's something that probably needs to be taught. The difference between positive and negative feedback. And there's several examples I can think of, like global warming was presented as a negative feedback, positive feedback. A lot in the atmosphere anyway. Originally, when they came out with this global warming idea several years ago, there was the idea that hydrocarbons were going to increase our heating of the earth. And then another group of scientists said, yes, but if the earth heats, then there'll be more evaporation, more clouds. Clouds will shade the earth more. There'll be less radiation reaching the ground, so that can have a cooling effect. And it will cause equilibrium. We have nothing to worry about. That debate went on for several years, and to me that was an idea of feedbacks in the climate, the atmosphere, how one thing will affect another in the opposite direction, and so on and so forth. So that was just an example I thought of this, but there's several bubble diagrams and things on here, and basically I think it's just kind of an eye-opener to have kids look at and see what a system is. The weakness of it, I would say, a mechanical system and going through the whole thing rather than just saying microwave, push the buttons on, that's your input. Because I know in an engineering design process, when you approach a problem, you define the problem and then you break the problem into different people working on different systems. They all communicate while they're working on it, and then you come together and put it together and make a final product. I thought I'd like to see a little bit more of that in this, to show how engineers use the systems approach. I think they don't need. Anyway, you can fill in blanks here and stuff like that.
Now, is this a PowerPoint that you found?
I found and modified it a little bit.
Is it in the EBD or you found
No,
it
I just found it
outside?
on the net and just changed it the way I wanted it.
Okay.
So, but it had been there what I was kind of shooting for and getting at. But that was I kind of put my understanding of it in there. But
One example that he came up with as far as showing an activity or doing an activity with students that would involve like the engineering concepts is this, and he's done it before with other classes. He's actually my physics chemistry teacher, and we did it whenever I was in his class. So it's the, some of you have probably heard of it. Let's see if I can find it.
has anybody done the West Point bridge design? Sure.
Yes.
Contest. I mean, that's got tension, they were talking about tension, and I mean, that's a good thing you can do on a machine where you don't have to drag out all those sticks and stuff. And you can design a bridge and have a truck drive across it and test it. I mean, I do this every year with my physics kids just for kind of a break, give them, and then have a contest, and whoever wins gets whatever the prize is. It's a good, neat little package that you can throw out there, and you can spend a week doing it and have them compete with each other and come up with. You can print out print it out so you can have it on paper. And I thought that was a neat little deal. You can apply your systems approach to this too, and the different systems on the bridge. And, I mean, all that stuff.
Math you could incorporate into that.
Oh yeah.
I really am glad I did this topic because my son is getting ready to graduate from college in IT. And I have no clue what IT is. And every time I ask him what IT is, he tells me and I don't know. And then my computer has a problem. I said, can you fix my computer? He said, no, that's not what IT people do. I said, what do IT people do? Yada, 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 yada. And so I finally got on this and I thought, okay, when I got into some of the stuff about the computer networking systems networking and stuff, it finally dawned on me that's what he's doing. That's what IT people do. They do, they work on spreadsheets and networking, and I finally figured out what he's going to do. So, and I asked him about it. I said, is this systems theory? And he goes, yeah, that's what I've been trying to tell you. Okay. So, I get it now. I know what you're doing. I know what you're going to plan on getting a job doing if you ever get one. So, anyway.
Yeah, and then the assessment that it gives is pretty basic also. It's a lot of, just making sure that they understood the definitions and concepts. One thing that we kind of agreed on was that we really probably should have went after the communication unit, just because I think it's such a fundamental introductory lesson. Just talking about systems, what they are. It didn't really have a lot meat to it, I guess.
And I was thinking about the projects that we did, you know, the hands-on stuff we did. And, you know, we could say, you know, define what system you want to run here, like is this a hydraulic system, is it a mechanical system? What are the parameters of this system? And then, you know, we could have broken it out that way and use this systems approach and maybe had some, you know, write down what the system is, how the system interacts with the others, if there are positive feedback, negative feedback, and if you can do that with just about anything stuff.
Can I make a comment about the assessment? You know, if you're sending thoughts to nationals or whatever it is that you're doing there, every single one of these assessments, to me, is pretty basic, pretty simple. And, you know, we're having this big push of making sure our classrooms are relevant and rigorous. And so I don't see, as I look at these, I don't see if we're supposed to be engineers creating solutions, it just seems like there should be some kind of piece in there that makes them think and create and do a little bit of writing. You get what I'm saying?
What I've seen is all the writing pieces are not in the assessment piece, they're here and there, constructed.
Along with the lesson?
They're with the lessons, not in the assessment piece.
Okay.
Yeah, that's two of the assignments is writing.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay.
And they're supposed to do that in their journal, so I would assume that they would have that, you'd have a record with all the rest of their work for this course.
But yeah, like what she just said too, you know, this is not a very difficult writing prompt. What is a system and what are subsystems?
So I thought about that too, and I thought, well, this is really only a freshman class. They raised it last year, so I thought it could have a little more content, you know, a little
bit more thinking.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, well, they're just freshmen. I mean, are they ready to think?
That's where.
I mean, well, you know what I mean. Are they ready to go that deep, or are we getting them ready to go that deep? I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah.
But once again, this is where I think there are so many reteachable moments. You might, and that's why I ask, is this writing prompt at the very beginning before you showed them the PowerPoint? Or have you shown them the PowerPoint? Have you allowed them the opportunity to think and put down their ideas? Because I, as a teacher, would want to know what they think a system is before I give them anything. And then I probably would give them examples and tell them to explain why it is a system. You know, it's delving into these and going back and reteaching. Okay, we've gone through a system. We've shown you this. Now, apply this to something else. Let's apply it to science. Let's apply it to math. Let's apply it, you know, because a system, a calculator is a system.
This has got a lot to do with intro to computer science and how, you know, how a computer works, input, output, processing. I mean, it's all.
But I do agree that the assessment pieces are simplistic in nature, and that if we're going for that rigor and that relevance in nature, there might be a little more substance that we can provide to that. But there's nothing wrong with you actually putting on a piece, asking them to detail a system that you guys have covered or whatever in your class, and grading it along with that assessment.
Yeah. And since there are only 2 resources, one resource that I thought might be pretty good to add was a design squad that you actually talked about the first time that we had a meeting here. I can't remember what the website is, but I know it's the design squad.
The PBS
kids.
Design squad.
Yeah, because the card one, I don't know if you showed us that, or I went home and looked it up. But that one talks about greeting cards where you can. Did you watch that in here? Does anybody remember that? Okay, so I watched it. There's a little activity on there where they take the greeting cards and do a greeting card hack. The ones where it has a voice recorder, and they can make their own drawer alarms, and they gave an example of somebody opening a pizza box, and it makes their voice come out, and it's like, hey, say what's in my pizza. I just thought it would be kind of fun, more for maybe middle school level, but it talks about circuits and how that when it's closed and open circuits versus closed
But
circuits.
see, so you could go get a Hallmark card, one that you think's really cool, and put that up there, and that could be their end challenges. They're gonna do one of those once they figured out the system and.
Yeah. That would be wonderful. It's a neat website. I like that.
It is totally usable, user-friendly.
We got any more questions about the system?
I'll just make one little comment as a grant writer. There's a lot of people in my field have a really hard time ahead. It would make it a lot easier with some of the things you know, is one we have to do on grant applications. Because you have to set up, measurements based on inputs and outputs.
Well, for me, it's systems are designed for complex things, because if you try to follow it all, you have to break it into pieces so you can.
Yeah.
That's what
You have to understand this piece goes to
you have
this
to do
piece,
one
yeah.
piece at a time and see how they fit together, not try to process the whole thing.
Yeah, you could do this in social studies really easily. Government systems and financial systems, and economics, all sorts of stuff.
And comments, questions? All right, good job, guys, here we go. Rob asked me a question earlier and said that he started in doing the robotic arm or robot challenge. I asked him to share what he's kind of doing, and then I will comment on what he asked me about the syringes.
Well, basically, I have a 3D design class that I teach, and similar to what you just stated, we've been working on the computer for 11 weeks now. We're using SolidWorks, which most of them I've introduced them to AutoCAD already, or in Inventor as well. We're using SolidWorks this year for our first time, so we spent quite a bit of time learning the software, and then going through some of the designs, giving them designs to come up with, or actually giving them designs that they had to reproduce. And then we've got a 3D printer that we use to print some of those things. So I took this thing because it was pretty intriguing to me when we started working on it the last time we were here. So I took that back and I discussed it with them. And what we're doing is they're actually designing the whole thing in 3D. And they got to take each part and print it separately. And we're just going to print it to paper though. And they have to have a completed list of materials, everything, including sizes and everything you're going to use. And I'm getting all the materials for it. And they're actually assemble it to build it. And then we're going to test it. So I didn't put as many limitations as we had because I wanted to work out real well. And what I basically did is the board that we had as a table, I just drew it up in CAD, and I changed the sizes a little bit and how much it would rotate, and I just drew it and then printed it on a large poster, and that's just basically the template to work on. That's where everything was set. And then I give them, they're going to all have the exact same base, and then there's a place they set the base, and I set it cannot move. One person's going to hold it, and the other person's going to operate it, and they're working in groups, so up to. So that's what I'm doing.
And then he asked me where I got the syringes. That was one of my first things when I was looking through all the materials to get for you guys, where to get things, and to get them economically cheap. Well, Gay had suggested getting online and going to Champ Vet. Is that what it was? Champion Vet? ChariotVet.com. And it was suggested why don't I go to a vet supply to get them. Problem is, if going to a vet supply, they have to log in the quantities going out, and when you're wanting, 15, 20 of those, and some red flags are going to start coming up to some of those vet offices where these are going, what they're being used for. I went to our farm and ranch supply in Emporia, it was Blue State Farm and Ranch Supply, and got them. I found that some of them were cheaper than what I could get online, and some of them were cheaper online than what I could get there. Cleveland had gone down here to Orchlands to see, they were out of several of the sizes that we wanted, or they only had one or two, where we were wanting, 10 or 12 so that we could decide what sizes to utilize. The other group, I will let you know, had better results than you guys. We made sure to work on it, and we gave them 6. We did give them 6 instead of 5. We gave you guys 5, right? No, we did? 5 syringes. So we gave them 6 syringes. There were a lot of them that had better successes and understood some of the concepts or worked that much more diligently on them to make them work. Not one design was similar. They were all different. One of them I could not fathom. They had taken the long piece of balsa wood that was 1 inch wide, drilled a hole in it, put a paper clip. They had bent the paper clip so it hooked in and then hooked down. I was like, what in the world? I didn't understand, but when they hooked it all together, it was really neat. So I'll just pull up some of those pictures so I can show you what their designs look like. I will do that. One of the first things that when we come back, I'll share with you after the presentation some of the other groups' pictures and photos. We are going to take an hour for lunch. So you have from now till 12:30 for lunch. Back here, we will come back. We will conclude with Brenda and CT and then Twyla. There's only 2 more units that they need to present. I'm going to do a short recap on a couple other lessons that for some reason we didn't have people sign up for because I think they're important. And Cleo and I are trying to decide whether we're going to give you another activity to do or not. We're going to see how much time allots us to be able to do one of those. So go have a good lunch and enjoy. Pittsco is where I got the 20. Hey, Rob, Pittsco is where I got the 20. I ordered the 20 milliliters of Pittsco, and they were okay in price, but still I know I can get them cheaper other places than Pittsco. It's whatever you decide, and I didn't want to go with the large with 60 milliliters. So I went with the 35. We thought 20 was around. All right. 4, 20. Yeah, we wanted to be able to show.
I had to call my brother.
Oh my God. Did he catch it?
No, we sit right there.
Oh, you were watching it there?
They're still going to get some distribution, but you can't go.
So I called us. You remember when I said that?
You're not going to go.
He's searching up.
So, you know, there was methods. You had some trouble again.
Oh, my God.